Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Tiny Epic Crimes, which is brought to you by Gameland Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 up, and games generally run about 30 to 60 minutes. Welcome to the city of Echo Ridge. It's a filthy concrete slab where lawless mobsters and opportunists run amok. Murder, bribery, contraband, and just when the tarmac couldn't get any hotter, infamous film producer Donnie Marietti, the mayor's son, was gunned down in his penthouse last night. It's no secret to you, an officer of the law, that he had his hands in the pockets of every wealthy lowlife in Echo Ridge City. And now he's dead. Good riddance by your book. But the mayor wants the case closed before the press sink their teeth into it. You have 48 hours until the lid blows off, and then it's all out gang war. Tiny Epic Crimes is a fast-paced crime-fighting deduction game that offers multiple ways to play. You will take on the role of detectives, and depending on the game mode, you'll be either working together or separately to crack the murder case. Time matters, and the first 48 hours after any crime is the most critical. You will race around Echo City trying to collect evidence, such as the murder weapon, forensics, or the getaway vehicle. The secret evidence is sifted through using the Tiny Epic decoder system, which keeps all the murderer's other evidence hidden. Can you hold the city of crime together long enough to crack the case, or will it go cold and your time on the force runs out? So as you can see here, this game is big and sprawling, but it all comes out of this Tiny Epic box. And I know I say it all the time about Tiny Epic games, but they pack so much game into this box. Now, for this preview, we're going to give you the highlights here. You know, there's been several videos already that dive into exactly how the game plays and every turn and so forth, but I'm going to give you my highlights, and we're going to talk a little bit about the competitive versus the cooperative version of the game. But as you can see, the city is always going to be random. Every time you play, you're going to lay out these tiles and so forth. You also have a stack of suspect cards that you're going to be trying to get clues for. But one of these, you're going to pull one randomly and put it into the murder suspect box. And then you have other envelopes that you'll be moving that suspect or that murderer from there to see the different clues based on finishing the clues out in the city or finding all the clues out in the city. And of course, you have your own detective with all the different actions and things you can do. And you can also see here that you're going to have a special ability as well as a force card to start the game. Now, force cards are things you're going to be using once and then you discard, but they do come back frequently through the course of the game. But your ability hangs on to your character really nice, and there are two sides to your character board. You have one for the competitive side and one for the cooperative side. Now, the really neat thing about this game that I love is that you have this day and night cycle. So as you perform actions and as you move around the city, that costs you time. For every movement, it costs you an hour. For some of the different abilities and actions you're doing for picking out clues or interrogating suspects, you're going to spend more than an hour, maybe a couple hours and so forth. So you have a handy reference card to show you exactly how all the time breaks down. But you do run through this day and night cycle, so you'll see as you spend hours on the track, you move along and eventually run back into night. And the cooperative version of the game, there is no day and night cycle on the time track. You are going to be using those specific actions again to your detective to solve the crime and work together, because everybody has their own set of special skills, I would say. But in the competitive version, you have all the actions available to you, but you can only use them in the day or at night, depending on where you are on the time track. And that's going to vary for all the players as they move along and perform actions. And whoever is furthest back on the time track will always go first or take another turn if you're still way back on the track, until all the players start to get synced up in time. And as you cross certain lines, you're going to start getting event cards. You will start with an event card. These event cards are crucial. They're going to do all kinds of things. They might have some setup as well, but you have to solve them, because if you let a fourth event card come into play, you start to lose suspects. So it starts to really trim down on the type of information you can glean from all the different things that you're doing in the game. And another aspect of the event card is that you will get a reward. If you're the player that completes the task, there's a reward at the bottom of the card, all kinds of different things here, but a lot of time you'll get a force card, which again gives you a special ability that you'll be able to tap into as you move around the city and so forth. So there are also tokens that are related to the specific events. So there might be a bomb in the city and you'll put tokens out indicating where you need to go and deal with the bomb. So again, you got to keep mindful of those events and stay on top of them while trying to find the clues and deal with all the mobsters. The decoder system in the game uses that red cellophane to reveal the information on the suspect cards. Now, when you're trying to cross off suspects, you'll be looking at the specific cards from the stack. Depending on what you're doing in the game, will allow you to do that in certain instances. So you'll use the magnifying glass, revealing what the suspect is on the back of the card. And so you'll be able to cross them off your list, but there is no note taking in this game. It's all memory based. So you need to be mindful, and they do give you, again, the handy reference card so you can weed out the blue suspects and the red suspects and try to weed it down to who the murderer might be. Now, as you move through the course of the game, you're going to be going after those different clues. And in the cooperative version, you're all just trying to collect those clues and then collectively look at the information. So you move the murderer card into one of the different types based on which clues were completed, but that will only give you a small piece of information. Now, in the competitive version, whoever collects the last token, let's say you're going after the purple tokens, which is an informant. So you have to, this is key also, so it is this grid-based system on the map. So you have to arrive there with your car where a mobster is, so you can actually interrogate this informant or question the informant. And if there is a corresponding token in that row, well, then you can grab it. Now, if you're the last one in the competitive game to grab that token, well, then you're the only one that's going to get to look at the murderer information on the back of the card. So you'll move it into the envelope, and all the envelopes are very clear about which clues need to be solved in order to put the murderer in there and reveal that specific piece of information. So again, you got to keep all this in memory as you're revealing these different types of information. So you have the informant, you have catch a witness, which is the blue tokens, and then you have the green tokens, which is search a scene. And again, as you do these specific things, it's going to cost you more and more time, and you only have a limited number of times, so it's going to start to move ever closer, and more events are going to happen. The city starts to break into chaos. And when dealing with the different types of clues, sometimes you have to make some choices here by risking time. Like for the stakeout, you'll arrive there and you have to decide how much time you're willing to burn at this stakeout, and you hope you're successful. If you are, you're going to gather the token. But you'll say, I'm going to say it's going to take me 3 hours. You'll flip over the binoculars token. It'll show the number. In this case, it's a 3, and I succeeded and I take the token. If it's not, then you don't get the token and you still burn the time on the time track. And also, you can grab a mobster and take them back to headquarters to interrogate them. This is another way to get clues for the murderer. So it is a lot of interesting back and forth as you move along this grid, and you will always be putting mobsters back on the board. There will also be events that will bring mobsters, and that's key because you need mobsters to use them as an informant or to use them as a witness. Now again, that happens at day and night cycles for the competitive version, but in the cooperative version, you're all working together, and those are available to you all the time based on which character you're using, of course, trying to complete all of those. There are so many different ways to gather clues in this game. It really is this interesting hunt through the city, moving along this grid-based system. And so your goal here is to collect all those evidence tokens to get enough information to solve this murderer. Now, if you're playing the competitive version and you're the last player, again, to get the final token in an evidence train, you're going to get specific information about the murderer by moving it into the right envelope. All kinds of things here like weapons, getaway, and forensics, or you're gonna know the gang, which is a super powerful piece of information because you can weed out either the red or the blue gang. So that is a really interesting aspect, but fear not, if you weren't the last one to get the evidence token and you still gathered some of those evidence tokens, you're going to get a suspect card. So you'll know who has an alibi for this murder. They're not specifically innocent, but you know that they have not committed this murder. So you'll keep that card. And what's interesting here is that your player character will have a rank, and as they move up the rank, you'll start to get additional force cards, again, giving you more abilities. But there is a new action that you'll unlock when you hit certain levels of your rank that allow you to go look at other players' suspect cards that they've collected. Again, giving you more ways to gather information. And then as you move through time and get closer to the 48 hours, as soon as you hit 43, you can start to accuse the murderer of the crime, and you hope you've collected enough information to do so. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now with that said, we didn't dive too deeply into the different abilities, but I like the fact that all your different detectives can get a different ability every time you play, giving them something unique for every game. But the different modes really offer up a lot of different ways to play as well. The cooperative version, I love the fact that your detective is kind of specialized and they're going after certain types of clues and you're working collectively to gather that information. But then in the competitive version, how it's this race against your fellow players and a race against time. And this day and night cycle works really well. I like that aspect a lot. And events in general are just a fun, throw a wrench in the works kind of mix, keeping you hopping as the city definitely feels like it comes alive as you try to deal with everything happening as well as collect the clues. So it is this interesting mix for sure. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.